It's the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, and tonight we're talking about the media's roles covering those cases.
In 2018, a study by the Urban Indian Health Institute looked at more than 500 MMIW cases across the country and found that 95% of them were never reported on by the media. KVU's Emily Goodell has written dozens of stories about missing Indigenous people, and today brings us one that's been overlooked for decades.
I think I was about 10 when I found out what actually happened to her. I just kind of always knew I just didn't have a grandma.
I didn't really get the full story until I was about, I'd say like 12 maybe. And then I started understanding more where my dad was coming from with being strict. It wasn't being strict, the trauma that he's been through.
Her name was Joanne Wyman, their father's mother, who had 11 children and went missing from the Brownstown area on August 1st, 1988, when she was just 44 years old. A missing persons report was filed, but the response from police?
They found out that she was last seen at a tavern. They kind of brushed it off and said that she was binging, that she'll return, but she never came home.
Her remains were found in the area of Mill Creek near White Swan on February 2nd, 1991, identified using dental records.
And there was just fractions of her body found there, so she wasn't even of flesh, it was just bones.
You can just imagine the trauma that my aunt and our fathers went through.
Growing up was definitely difficult. I personally have only seen 2 pictures of her my whole life, and I'm 34, and I've only seen 2 pictures, and I've heard very few stories of her.
Almost 35 years later, only 2 articles written about her.
You wonder how many others are only 1 or 2, or even if more. I feel like it's never enough. There's never enough outreach. There's never enough information out there. There's never enough people talking about it, especially being Indigenous people.
To this day, they still don't know who killed her.
With it being a cold case, it's even lower chance of being solved, is even more disheartening as a person, really.
Because few people know the name Joanne Wyman, about who she was or what happened to her.
She was a very loving person and a very upfront person, and that's how we were raised.
She was a cooker.
She was a cooker.
And the most stories I've ever heard was that she made good yeast rolls.
She deserves to be remembered and to deserve to know that everybody knows that she was human at the end of the day. She had a family, and you know, she's important, and she's Indigenous too.
Reporting, Emily Goodell, KVU Local News.
Anyone with information about that case should call Yakama Nation Tribal Police at 509-865-2993. And in honor of MMIW Awareness Day, KVU's Emily Goodell has been sending out tweets every 10 minutes or so. These tweets contain the names of those who are missing Indigenous people from the Yakama Reservation. Some of these have been missing in the last month. Some have been lost for decades. If you want to learn more, you can check out Emily's Twitter and take a look. You may be the person who has the clue that could solve the case.